This book is getting scary. This is Delia again. This is The Vampire Diaries, The Awakening, Chapter 10, Part 4. And this is a creepy, creepy time right now. Something is going on. It's very scary because she's all alone in the gymnasium and now she sees somebody. It was taken on a human form, the form of a young man. "I'm sorry if I frightened you." The voice was pleasant with a slight accent she couldn't place. It didn't sound sorry at all. Relief was so sudden and complete that it was painful. She slumped and heard her own breath sigh out. It was only a guy, some former student or an assistant of Mr. Shelby's. An ordinary guy who was smiling faintly, as if it had amused him to see her almost pass out. Well, perhaps not quite ordinary. He was remarkably good-looking. His face was pale in the artificial twilight, but she could see that his features were cleanly defined and nearly perfect under a shock of dark hair. Those cheekbones were a sculptor's dream, and he'd been almost invisible because he was wearing soft black boots, black jeans, black sweater, and leather jacket. And he was still smiling faintly. Elena's relief turned to anger. "How did you get in?" she demanded. "And what are you doing here? Nobody else is supposed to be in the gym." "I came in the door," he said. His voice was soft and cultured, but she could still hear the amusement, and she found it disconcerting. "All the doors are locked," she said flatly, accusingly. He raised his eyebrows and smiled. "Are they?" Elena felt another quiver of fear, hairs lifting on the back of her neck. "They were supposed to be," she said in the coldest voice she could manage. You're angry," he said gravely. "I said I was sorry to frighten you." "I wasn't frightened," she snapped. She felt foolish in front of him, somehow like a child being humored by someone much older and more knowledgeable. It made her even angrier. "I was just startled," she continued, "which is hardly surprising, what with you lurking in the dark like that." "Interesting things happen in the dark sometimes." He was still laughing at her. She could tell by his eyes. He had taken a step closer, and she could see that those eyes were unusual, almost black, but with odd lights in them, as if you could look deeper and deeper until you fell into them and went on falling forever. She realized she was staring. Why didn't the lights come on? She wanted to get out of here. She moved away, putting the end of a bleacher between them, and stacked the last folders into the box. Forget the rest of the work for tonight. All she wanted to do now was leave. But the continued silence made her uneasy. He was just standing there, unmoving and watching her. Why didn't he say something? "Did you come looking for somebody?" She was annoyed with herself for being the one to speak. He was still gazing at her, those dark eyes fixed on her in a way that made her more and more uncomfortable. She swallowed. "With his eyes on her lips," he murmured. "Oh, yes." "What?" She'd forgotten what she'd asked. Her cheeks and throat were flushing, burning with blood. She felt so lightheaded. If only he'd stop looking at her. "Yes, I came here looking for someone," he repeated, no louder than before. Then in one step he moved toward her, so that they were separated only by the corner of one bleacher seat. Elena couldn't breathe. He was standing so close enough to touch. She could smell a faint hint of cologne and the leather of his jacket, and his eyes still held hers. She could not look away from them. They were like no eyes she had ever seen, black as midnight, the pupils dilated like a cat's. They filled her vision as they filled her vision as he leaned toward her, bending his head down to hers. She felt her own eyes half close, losing focus. She felt her head tilt back and her lips part. No! Just in time, she whipped her head to the side. She felt as if she'd just pulled herself back from the edge of a precipice. What am I doing? She thought in shock. I was about to let him kiss me, a total stranger, someone I just met only a few minutes ago. But that wasn't the worst thing. For those few minutes, something unbelievable had happened. For those few minutes, she had forgotten Stefan. But now, his image filled her mind, and the longing for him was like a physical pain in her body. She wanted Stefan, wanted his arms around her, and wanted to be safe with him. She swallowed, and her nostrils flared as she breathed hard. She tried to keep her voice steady and dignified. "I'm going to leave now," she said. "If you're looking for somebody, I think you better look somewhere else." He was looking at her oddly with an expression she couldn't understand. It was a mixture of annoyance and grudging respect and something else. Something hot and fierce and frightened her in a different way. He waited until her hand was on the doorknob to answer, and his voice was soft but serious with no trace of amusement. "Perhaps I've already found her, Elena." When she turned, she could see nothing in the darkness. Now that's scary, and I believe that's Damon. That sounds like Damon. Because he was mysterious like that, and yes, it sounds just like him. But we'll find out. Okay, so we're going on to chapter 11, and I'll be doing that soon. Talk to you soon, and reading soon.